Hello, my name is Goldpin. Today I'll be sharing with you how to edit your image from beginners. Okay, this class is actually for beginners. Okay, so what we have to do now, the first thing we have to do when we get to Photoshop is to load our Photoshop. Okay, now after doing that, the next thing we have to do is to come to where we have file. As you can see, these all are what you will be used throughout your entire stay on Photoshop. Now the first one here is called a file. This is how you import your pictures. On this column you have where you import your pictures, how to create smart objects. We'll be discussing everything about this, all this icon as future time goes in. So first and foremost is to import our image. Now the thing we are going to do is to click on this file. Once you load up Photoshop, I will advise you get the latest Photoshop. Okay, now 2018, 2017 is fine also, but 2020 and 2021 is still fine. I'm currently using the version of 2021, so which simply advise you update your Photoshop for better and faster performance. Now I'll be clicking here to open up my images. Now when I open up my images, when I open here, to take me automatically to the file that I will be selecting from. Alright, now I've located my file here, right here. So after locating my file, I simply click on open, and when I click on open, it automatically takes me to this plugin called Camera Raw. Camera Raw is a plugin that enables you process your raw images, because when shooting, you shoot on RAW. It enables you process your raw images so you can easily edit them for the sake of Photoshop. So for easier processing on Photoshop, now what you have to do, as you can see, I've already adjusted all the settings, but I'm going to just quickly come to where I have reset. Okay, I'm going to reset to default. Now after resetting, the thing I'm going to do is to start all over again of how I edit this image. Now the first icon here is exposure. Exposure tells you the overall brightness of the image and the overall darkness of the image. Now you just have to strike a balance to what you want. Simply, I'll just come here and expose the picture a little bit. Now if I should scroll up on this bar, this is my scroll bar where I can easily scroll up and down to actually color grade. Now on this Camera Raw, it's a very nice plugin that enables you color grade very well and make your image standard. Now on this camera profile is how your image is being taken. So most times people like leaving theirs at Adobe standard, which is not bad, Adobe color, which is also not bad. So whichever one works fine for you, you can pick it. But as for me, I'll be going with Adobe color, and I'll be clicking here to take up my camera profile. Now I'll be scrolling down because I actually shot. If you are conversant with shooting, you should know what camera standard is. It's a color profile. Now I actually shot at camera standard on my computer, on my camera. So right here, I'll just easily come here to where I have camera standard and click on it. As you can see, it has a richer contrast than the rest. So I'll click on back. After, what I did was just come over here to where I have this icon and scroll over to where you have camera standard. You can find it and just okay it. Now as you can see, it takes all much red in the image. Now I'll come over to where I have the saturation and reduce it down a little bit. Saturation tells you that this color is getting increased, all the colors in the image is getting increased at same velocity. Now if you decrease everything down, it tells you that all the colors are being decreased at same velocity. So most times what you have to do is to come down after setting your picture style to camera standard. Just turn it down a little bit if the saturation is too much. Now I have to reduce the vibrance a little bit. And now as you can see, I shot at Canon. So my camera is Canon, and Canon has this magenta and red always attached to it. So when you shoot, you always get like this red. So all you have to do is to change the temperature or mess with the tint, and also reduce down the red, which I'll be doing shortly. So just watch. So when it comes to temperatures changing, this tells you how warm or how cold you want your image to look like. Pulling it to the right hand side tells you that your picture is going to be very warm. So I'm much more of a cool and warm shooter depending on how the situation was given. So I'll actually drag this a step down a little bit to the left hand side. At least this is okay for me. This is what I want. Now as you can see, my image looks much more rich. Now I'll be explaining contrast actually tells you that this image will pop out well if you increase it, and if you decrease it, the image will look flat. Can you see? Can you see? So it's basically just playing around. Since I've set my camera standard to my since I set my color profile to camera standard, I can easily just quickly reduce a little bit on the contrast. Okay, because I've gotten enough contrast from there already. Now we'll come over to highlight. Highlight tells you that this is the overall white in the image. Can you see? Overall brightness in the image. Can you see? If I increase it up, you can see all the bright parts keep popping up. If I reduce it, you can see all the dark side keep going down. All the bright side keeps going down if I reduce it. Now I'll have to just strike a balance between this stuff. It also gives you this shyness if you increase it. Now reducing and increasing your shadows as well. Can you see the effects? If you reduce it, it tells you that all the dark side, all the shadows on the image will get down dark a little bit. Now increasing it will tell you that all the bright side in the image will pop up. So you just have to find a balance between what you want. Actually increase it a little bit. Now what I see people do most times is that they increase it to the end, which is not good, and that will spoil your image. You just have to bring it to a reasonable amount. Now the white tells you that this is the overall white part of the image. White and highlight are almost the same, but don't get yourself confused. This tells you that the white parts in the images, all these shiny parts are white. So if you increase it too much, it will blow off your image. So all you have to do is just find a balance. Now I'll increase my blacks a little bit because I got enough contrast from setting my mode to camera standard. As you can see, I'm having a lot more red, which I like. So after playing with those icons, I can come over to where I have my color mixer. Can you see it? So these are what I will explain on future videos. Now if you take this up, you see that it gives it a lot more orange. If you take it down, it takes away those orange a little bit and those reds. I'll drop the reds down a little bit. As you can see, now we have come far to understand the basic panel about this camera raw. Can you see it? Can you see the camera raw? This alone has processed and color graded our image to what the eyes can see. Okay, we have actually calibrated the image for what the eyes can see. Now quickly, there are two icons here that most times you should be using, especially this one at the left hand side. If you click on it, you can see, toggle on it, you see a before and after of the image. Now if you want to go a bit further, you can click on this one, which pulls out the before and the after of this image. Zoom in to see if you have made any changes that it's not good. Now as you can see, we have not lost on the skin color or the skin details. We have actually retained everything that needs to be there on the image. That's the one thing you should consider while trying to drag all these icons. Always make sure that you do not overdo things. Overdoing things will spoil your images and make them look fake. That's what I see a lot of people do. They retouch and then their images looks different from the original. Now after doing this, checking up all you have done, you can also pull the exposure up a little bit. Now the next thing you to do is to take it to Photoshop. This is cancel. If you click on this cancel, it will automatically remove your files, which you won't see on Photoshop. If you click on done, it means that you can actually bring back the photo and continue from this part that you have stopped, which is also fine, but it won't take you to Photoshop. Now if you click on open, which I'm going to click on right now, it will take you to Photoshop directly, which you can start working on your image. As you can see, we are already at Photoshop working already. Now all these panels here are what I will explain gradually as time goes on. Then on this right hand side is where the tools are that you can work with. All these tools are what you will use in editing this beautiful picture. So right now, as you can see, this is the background. This is the background of what you are to start with. This is more like the original copy of all you'll be doing. All the files that you'll be doing embed on this copy. Now for you to start working, simply come to here and click on, right click on it and scroll down to where you have duplicate layer. Can you see it? Duplicate layer. Click on it once. It will tell you duplicate. Just click on OK. It makes a duplicate of this image, which means whatever you do here cannot be affected here. You can also delete this thing and redo. Okay, this is more like a building blocks for all the things that you will be doing. Now, how do you zoom in and zoom out of Photoshop? All you have to do is to click on your Control key and click on the plus. It draws the image closer. You click on, just hold down the Control and click on minus, it pulls it back. You click on Control and plus, it pulls in again. You click on Control and minus, it takes it back. So that's how you zoom in and zoom out of an image. Now the first thing you are going to do is to remove blemishes. Okay, as you can see, she has, her face is kind of smooth, but she has a little bit of blemish on her face. Now how do you remove it is to zoom in to the spots that you are actually going to work on. Now pressing the bracket key reduces the size of the brush and increases the size of your brush. Now the first tool here that we'll be working on while trying to remove blemishes is called the spot healing brush tool, which we will be using. Now spot healing brush tool is very easy to understand. Spot healing brush tool goes directly in sampling areas that you should also use while working. It's if you click on a particular spot that has blemishes, what it does is that it samples from that area and then it gives you almost the same result as you can see. They call it the spot healing brush tool. It's close to where you have this icon here. Now what you have to do is just sample and leave it. Sample and leave it. Look for where your blemish is, sample and leave it. It will automatically take that out. Sample and leave it, sample and leave it. Now you have to do this in every part of the image where you see your blemish. Okay, so you just keep doing like that until you are done with the whole process. Now this process is, I will actually allow you take your time while I also take my time when doing this blemish remover. Okay, it's not something you rush, because 90% out of your retouching, let's say 80% anyway, has to do with how well you heal. Okay, because as we humans, we are not perfect. So you keep healing. Just keep healing like that. Now I have to fast forward the video so you won't get bored of this process. Alright, now as you can see, I've done all the healing on this image. Okay, as you can see, we have removed all the blemishes using this tool here called spot healing brush tool. Okay, Look at it here. If you just press J on your keyboard, you automatically move to spot healing brush 2. Now you have to zoom out to see if you have done a good job, and also zoom in to check if you have done a good job. So as you can see, we have done a pretty decent job on the pimple remover. If I were to go in depth, I would have actually zoom in here to take those ones. Let me just try. Now for this one, I have to come to the next tool here. This tool is actually located inside here. They call it the patch tool. If you don't see it inside, it should be inside this your spot healing brush tool. I actually customize mine by removing. What it does is that you just circle it and then you sample from an area, you pull it out just like that. You circle the spot after clicking on the patch tool. You just bring it out and move it like that. Okay, all this you do gradually, and then you circle and then you pull it out. You circle and then you pull it out just like that. Okay, circle and then you pull it out. You just basically circle the spot and you pull it out. You circle and then you take that out. Okay, now you can also come back to your spot healing brush tool to remove this white stuff from your images. Take that out. Okay, so we've done a pretty decent job on this image. Now what I did on this black and white, let me remove it. Forgot to tell you guys how I did it. Now I came down to this tool here, this middle one here. Can you see it? I clicked on it, then I went to where I have black and white. Can you see it? Black and white. So I clicked on it to enable me see the indifferences and the imperfection in this image. Then I turned down the reds. Okay, when I turn down the reds, I should be able to see the pimples, or what you call the blemishes, very well. Now if you toggle off and on, you can pretty much observe that you have taken away all the imperfection, blemishes on the face. Now you zoom out and then you click cancel. You can easily delete this black and white by just right clicking on your mouse, scroll down to where you have delete layer. You delete it, just click on yes, and then it takes that out like that. Or the other way to delete it is just to basically drag to where you have this delete button. Just drag. You can see a hand pulling it down. Just drag and dump it there to delete that part for you. Now as you can see, we have done with editing that blemish part out. Now the next thing we have to do is to go over to where we have our next on the list is frequency separation. Okay, frequency separation is a technique used to actually skin retouch our images. Now skin retouching is simply evening out the skin tones, color grading and harmonizing the skin in Photoshop. So in this Photoshop, we're actually going to use the skin retouching process called frequency separation. There are a whole lot of YouTube videos on how you can do your skin retouching, but my goal for this explanation is to give you 100% assurance that by the time you are done listening to this thing, taking it step by step the way I'm going to teach it, you'll be able to understand why it is called skin retouching, skin frequency separation, and you'll be able to use it wisely. Now on this my layer, I was supposed to call this blemish remover, which you can just double click and say blemish. It's okay. blemish. You can put it like that as blemish, because this layer was actually the layer we used in removing our blemishes from our subject. Now all we have to do now is to simply mesh the layer. Now we can just say Shift Control Command E, or if you are using Windows, you can say Shift Control Alternate E, and that will merge all the things that you have done. Now you have a new layer here. Now all I have to do to this layer is to easily duplicate it. Okay, now I'll duplicate it here. This is one and this is another one. These are both the two layers that we created on this project called frequency separation. Now frequency separation simply means you have to like separate you have to separate the textures from the color. Now as you can see, we have too much colors, nice beautiful colors on this image. Now but if you zoom in very well, you see where they call the texture. As you can see, these are all textures, the sharp part of the image. If you zoom out a little bit, now you can see all this sharpness are what they call texture, this sharpness. Now what we are going to do is that we'll move the texture to one side and then we move the colors to another side, thereby separating it on these two layers. So one layer will now have the color and another layer will now have the texture. So we can simply rename it by double clicking in the layer. All you just have to do is to double click on the layer where they write layer 1 and simply rename it as, you can say, color frequency. Put it that way. You can come here and write texture frequency. So by doing so, you have been able to make two layers. So I recap again. You made the first layer, which duplicated and meshed. This first layer, you have named it color and you have made this one texture. So you zoom out. So by doing that, you have been able to kick on the process. Now all we have to do is to come to where we have our color tune, come to where you have this color frequency, come to where you have this filter. Can you see it? This filter, click on the filter and scroll down to where you have blur. Can you see? Come down to where you have Gaussian blur and click on Gaussian blur. Now while clicking on this, you can be able to see your preview of what you are doing. Now you can zoom in and zoom out using these two icons. As you can see, the numbers are changing, the percentage are changing. Now you zoom in very well, you can be able to see that the texture, you are trying to now blur out the colors. You are trying to take out the colors to one side and take the texture to one side. So what you have to do now on this color frequency, you take this one down totally. Then you zoom in to where you see the most sharpest parts in your image. Now I prefer this part because it has a lot of texture on it. Now all you have to do is to also look here and also look here. Okay, now you just keep increasing the blur radius until you no longer see the texture anymore, which means you have hidden the texture from the color frequency. Now you keep doing it until, as you can see, there's still a little bit of texture. As you can see, we keep moving to where we no longer see it. Can you see? We can no longer see it anymore. So this is fine by me. This is fine. You zoom in, you check. So at least you can no longer see. Then you can always preview to check how it is going. Always preview so you won't go overboard with this process. Now if I could recap again, we are trying to extract the texture away from it. Okay, we are trying to hide the texture on this. Then we click OK. So as soon as we are done clicking OK, we move now to the top the texture frequency. Can you say the texture frequency? Now all we have to do in this texture frequency is come over to where we have the image. Can you see it? The image. Can you see the image? Then we come to where we have apply image. Now what we intend to do in this apply image is to make sure that we take off, we select, can you see it? We select the color frequency. We select the color because we are trying to extract the texture away from the color. Can you see it? So we take off the color, we come to the color, we click on color because we are trying to extract the texture away from it. Now we saw the layer, we click on color, then we go down to where we have the subtract. So we click on subtract. Can you see it? We click on subtract. And then when we click on subtract, we observe that we have succeeded in extracting the texture away from it. Now all we have to do now is to come to where we have this scale. Click on the scale and set it to 2. Come to where we have the offset and make it 128. Can you see it? Can you see it? We are trying to extract the texture away from the color. Okay, now as you can see, if we click on preview, we can see that our image returns back to the way it was. Now you can see, so all we have to do is to make sure this invert is not checked. Okay, make sure this invert is not checked, and then we click on OK. Can you see it? As you can see now, you don't have to be worried when you see something like this because we are going to bring it back and assure you that your image will be restored back. So all you have to do now is to come to where you have the blending mode. You can see it here. Can you see it here? This place where you have the blending mode, you click on it, then you scroll to where you have the linear light. Can you see it? Linear light. You click on it, then your image returns back to the way it was. Can you see it? Can you see it? Now by doing this, you have been able to extract your colors from your colors from your texture. So all you have to do now is to put both of these two into a group. Here you can start working on them separately. Now all I have to do is to click on texture and hold down my shift key and click on color, also color frequency. Right click and go to where we have group from layers. Can you see it? Group from layers. You click on the group and automatically it groups both of them together. Can you see it? It groups them on one board layer. Then you can simply click on it and say write frequency separation. Can you see it? You have been able to separate it, but you won't feel the effect now. But once you start, you can off this color now. As you can see, there's a lot of texture. Can you see it now? You put it on, you bring back color. If you off this texture, you can be able to see that you have removed the texture. You have hidden the texture by toggling this icon off and on. You have been able to remove the texture. Now by clicking this also, you have been able to remove the color. Now okay it, and then we move to start working. Now the first thing you have to do is to come to your color by turning off your texture. You zoom in to even out the skin. Can you see? We are trying to now even out the skin to make it much more like a seamless background. That's the idea of skin retouching. Now all you have to do now is to come to where you have your mixer brush. Okay, now we'll be using our brush to make sure that our sides are properly leveled. Now we'll click on our brush B. As you can see, if you actually installed your Photoshop, your mixer brush should be here. Okay, but mine, I actually took mine out and brought it out so I can, because I always work with my mixer brush all the time and I don't want to keep coming here to keep picking it all the time, so I just brought it out for faster purposes. Now as you can see, as you click on your mixer brush, they call it mixer brush, can you see it? Mixer brush, it simulates real painting techniques such as blending colors and varying paint wetness. So which means that it has a way of actually you have the ability to control your brush size, your brush wetness, your brush load, the mix, the flow. You can be able to control all these things using your mixer brush, as the name implies, mixer brush. Now for these settings, what you have to do is to make sure you set your brush to soft round brush, reduce the hardness to the lowest, and increase the size a little bit. You can be able to control this size by using your bracket key to open and bracket key to close. So all you have to do is to come to where you have clean brush, clean it, click on clean brush, clean it. Please note these settings because it's very important. Now come to where you have this clean brush, click on it also. Now where you have this brush, click on custom, leave it at custom. Put your wetness at 30 or 29. Now leave your load at 30. We'll be explaining this in details in future. Now this mix also tells you how well you can be able to mix from shadows to the whites to the highlights, the whites to the shadows. So be able to do that. Always leave your mix at 30. Sticks to what works for you. Now 30 also, in the other hand, I'll leave it at 30. Then I'll make sure this is unchecked, and this also leave it at 10%, and make sure sample all layers is unchecked because you are trying to work on this layer. So all you have to do now is just to not to zoom in, and let me show you a quick trick on how you can be able to see your imperfection in the skin, because you are trying to mix now, which is the most sensitive part in this tutorial. Now you turn it to where you have black and white. Let me go back again. I'll drag and delete. I've showed you that one before. You come to where you have this your icon here, you click on black and white. You turn down the blacks a little bit, you close it, you turn down the red, sorry, a little bit, and then you close this icon down. Now if you zoom in a little bit, you can be able to see your imperfections. As you can see, this place has blacks and this place has white, this place has black and this place has white. As you can see, the mixing is not done properly. So what you have to do now is to come to your color frequency, increase your brush size, not too big, then start mixing gradually. As you can see, the face of the model, you have to mimic it, so you won't, I cannot be brushing up to down when the the texture of the face is going this way, like back and forth. Now all I have to do now is to easily blend gradually. So you can see I'm blending. So you can see I'm blending slowly. If you observe that your wetness is too much, you can actually come here and reduce on it to make it like 25. Then you start blending. Okay, now I want you to take note of this mistake. There are a lot of people who just started blending and then they end up blending from here to here like this, pouring in to something like this. This is wrong. To undo it, you have to press Ctrl Z to go back to undo. Now if you observe very well, in between the white and the black there is actually a line. Now the way you blend these two together is to make sure that one stroke is in the other side and one stroke is in the other side as well. Now you just have to keep blending. When you see a line like that, you blend. You blend in between the two lines. So you keep blending until when your skin has come out perfect. Now this takes a lot more time, so you have to give yourself enough time to learn these techniques. Okay, you don't just start blending and then you get the first day. You keep blending and with time your work will come out very good and you become a master in blending. As you can see, I'm blending slowly. Okay, so most times the mistake we make after blending a little bit, we don't check our image, we just keep blending. All we have to do now after blending a little bit, we come to where we have the black and white, we toggle it off and then we put on the texture back on, off it and on it. You can see that we are actually doing a pretty decent job with blending, as you can see. So all we have to do now is to put back the black and white, put off the texture. We are still in our color frequency, then we start blending. So this process takes more time, so you have to be patient while blending. I don't want to go too overboard and this. As you can see, I'm under the eyes now, so all you have to do is to blend gradually. I'm in between some highlights and some shadows, so basically this is the shadows and this is the highlights. So you have to make sure the skin tones are evened out gradually. And you don't like expand your brush. It's not good to expand your brush size in an area that you know is very small. You open your brush according to the area that you are working on. As you can see, these areas carry a lot of shadow, so you have to blend slowly. and I'm in between now. I'm in the white, the highlights. So I've gone back to where we have the forehead, the shadows. I'm blending slowly. So basically you can just take your time to do all these things, but what I will advise you is to make sure that your hand is constantly on the brackets, the open and close bracket, because that's where you open your brush and you close it back. If it's too big, so you constantly toggle in between the brackets. Now I've been able to even out some parts in the image. As you can see, I will actually put on my texture back. As you can see, I've been able to blend very well, taking my time. Zoom out to see your image, because you are always working on different sides. You have to make sure you are zoomed out most of the time to check. As you can see, the blending is going very well. Now you have to put it back on, put it off your texture, and then you continue blending. Okay, now you are more like the makeup artist. Your job is to blend and make sure the picture stands out. And do not rush your blending process. And back again to where you have the shadows, and do not overblend. Okay, if you over pressure the sensitivity of the brush, it's going to lead to, should I say, disaster. So you can see I'm trying to go around. Let me zoom in to show you guys what I'm doing a little bit. I'm trying to go around the white region. Now this is the white. I'm trying to go around it gradually. Okay. This takes a little bit more time to master, so be patient with yourself at all time. So I'll actually fast forward this place so I won't bore you with too much blending, but the process stays the same. Just blend out the skin and I'll show you the result of how it went down. So as you can see, I've been trying to blend the chest region to make it look more unique. We are almost done with the blending process. Now what I see a lot of photographers do is that they don't blend very well and they have a very bad skin. Okay, they have a very bad transition between shadows to highlights. That's why this process requires a little bit more time. Okay, you have to be patient enough to actually blend properly. And when you are blending, don't overly zoom into your image. because majority of the time your images are not going to be zoomed on Instagram. It's going to be seen as it's short, like this. So always make sure, if you have to zoom in, zoom out most of the times to check, right? So I'm basically rushing this blending stuff because I don't want these lectures to be too long, but you can take out time to blend your images very well. Okay, take out time to blend very well. So if you are using a mouse, the setting is still the same. If you are using a mouse, it's fine. But if you are using a Wacom tablet, it's also fine. You can still achieve similar results. So I think we are done with the neck region a little bit. Let's go over to the face. I'll be showing you a lasso trick tool that you can be able to even out those transitions as well, to make it look much more seamless. Now we are done with, I've done a pretty decent job on this image. We have been able to blend the skin very well. Can you see? So if I zoom in, you can see that we have blended it up to a reasonable amount of, too much of everything is bad. Always note that. I've told you that before. Now all we have to do is just to make a duplicate of, we press Command J to duplicate the color layer. Once we do that, we zoom in a little bit, not too much. We zoom in, and then we come over to where we have the, we pick our lasso tool. We come over to where we have this tool. We come to this part. We pick up this tool called lasso tool. Can you see it? Lasso tool. We just basically select some part of the skin. This will actually enable us smoothing out those transitions that were not done. Then we right click and then we click on feather. So when we click on feather, we actually leave it at 10. Set your pixels to 10. To toggle it on is just press Q on your keyboard, Q, and then you see the feathers. If it's not too showing, if it's not too much, you can click on the feathers back and press increase the pixels to 20. You click on the Q icon, at least that's feathered enough. You can come to where you have your blur, your filter, then you go to blur, you come to Gaussian blur. Now you take it down to 0, then you start increasing and watch out for the smoothness transition it gives your image. Can you see? Can you actually see that? You won't feel the effect until you go like overboard. If you go overboard, this is not what you want. It will start adding some roughness to your work, which you don't want. This is it, you don't do that. You have to reduce it to like 24 works fine. You toggle it off and on to see the before and after. Always try and preview what you are doing. So I think a little bit like 27 is fine. Okay. Click on it to see the before and after. As you can see, it has evened out the skin tone even much more. Now all you have to do now is to come to the other side of the face and make a selection. click on it and click on the feather, make it 20. Come to where you have the filter, come to blur, come to Gaussian blur. And also you can be able to see that that line that was there before has left. Okay, that's blended. Can you see? It has blended. Now okay it, and then you see that the transition, okay it off and on, you can see that that transition has been done. Now if you are to do this middle part, it will look so flat. So for me, I'll leave this middle part because it looks much more okay. Now my aim now is to blend the transition between these shadows and the highlights to make it a little bit more seamless. Now I'll come to where I have the feathers and also feather it, click on same process applies down here, just click on OK. As you can see, it has blended that portion very well. You do the same for the other parts. Make sure you are in between the highlights and the shadows. Now you same process. As you can see, it has given you a much more softer and easy smooth transition on the face. I will do the same for this cheekbone. Come to my Gaussian blur and even it out. Can you see? Now you zoom out and check. You can see that we have gone from here to here. So we have easily, this process is what we call the frequency separation method of editing pictures. Okay, can you see? Can you see? Can you see the transition? Now if you want to work on the, if you want to a little bit, you can go crazy and go overboard by actually circling this stuff out. If you want it much more a smooth transition, you can also repeat the same process just like that. But as for me, I'm not going to touch those cheekbones because I don't want it flat. Okay, once you do that, you actually get your image looking so flat. All these bones are not what you should mess with. Okay, if you actually touch them, like also the nose, if you actually touch them, it's going to make your image look so flat. As you can see zoomed in, the image now looks a little bit more perfect, and also here also looks much more perfect. Okay, now this is the entire process when it comes to frequency separation. If you feel that you have done too much, you can easily come down to your opacity. Once you have grouped all of them like this, just click on the group and just basically reduce opacity. And you say it, reduce opacity, it means that you have reduced all the techniques, the process that you have done. You don't want it too much, but for me, I think 100 just works fine for this image. As you can see, it does not take away the natural from her face, it kept it retained. Okay, now the next step we have to be moving on. Okay, now the next thing you have to do now is to, I want to make a stamp visible layer. I want to actually clone stamp this whole stuff. So what I have to do now is to click on Shift, Alternate, Control E. It will automatically stamp this because I want to work on this background. I want to make sure it's bright. Okay, so what I have to do is to come to where I have select. Okay, click on select, click on subject select. It will only select the subject, which is the person that you are seeing right now, the model. So once it does that, right click on it and select inverse. Doing so makes you select the background alone. Okay, now once you are done selecting the background, just come over to where you have your mask, this icon here, click on mask. Okay, so everything that you have selected has reflected here. So all you have to do is to come to this icon, don't get confused, click on it and click on brightness. Okay, once you click on brightness, hold down your alt key, pick up this guy, pick up this mask and move it to where you have this other white part. It's also the mask. Then leave it, then replace it by saying yes. So whatever you do now, brighten this up, you click on this place, whatever you brighten now, it will affect this whole background. Now all you have to do is just click on this part and increase it gradually. As you can see, I've increased it to a reasonable amount I want it to be. Like, I don't want it to be too bright, so I'll leave it somewhere like this. Of course, you can see the transition between this stuff. So once you have gotten to this level, you can, if you are confused, you can easily watch again for better clarity sake. Now all I have to do is to actually close down, because I'm seeing some distractions, like all this stuff. I will just shift control alternate E again. On my Mac is shift alternate command E. I'll circle it and pick up the, I told you about this patch tool. You just pick it and then you move it sideways. Circle the distraction, you move it sideways. Now circle this whole stuff. Circle this whole stuff and move it sideways. Can you see? Move it sideways. Circle this one here. Move it down. Same thing applies to this guy. Can move this one up a little bit. Circle this one here and move it up. Circle this one. You have to take your time to do this, okay? And move it up, okay? Circle this one here and move it up as well. Go this up and you have to move it up like this. So by the time you do that, you can be able to see that you can also circle this and move it the other way around. You circle it and move it this way. Circle this part and move it this way. Now all you have to do now is to circle this whole portion. Once you are done circling this whole portion, now here's the trick. Click on this lasso tool. Click on this move tool, sorry. Take it up a little bit. Sorry. Click on this lasso tool and move it up, okay? Then you press your control alternate. Hold down your control alternate, but for system I'll use my option and command. It will make a duplicate of this place, bring it down and put it down here as well, okay? It will automatically create this shape, but not to worry, just go back to your lasso, your patch tool, just hold it and just like that, keep working on it. So you have succeeded in evening out this whole stuff. And you can also see a line right here. You can also remove this as well, because I don't basically like distractions. So at least you have cleaned up the whole background. You have succeeded in cleaning up the whole background. Now you can just pick your mixer brush tool and just touch it a little bit, okay? Not too much, just touch it a little bit. Okay, so I think that's fine by me. Now after doing this, the next thing we are to do on Photoshop as you can see, I'm toggling off and on of the things that we have removed from the background. Okay, now by doing so, the next thing we have to do is just to give this image a little bit more three-dimension by burning some side and giving some side highlights. So all we have to do, they call it dodging and burning. So all we have to do is to come to where we have these curves, click on the curves, drag it a little bit down, you remove this, you come over to here and rename this one burn. You come over and create another one, come to where you have curve and you drag this one up and you name this one dodge. Okay, now all you have to do is to come here to the first burn, click on alternate eye, come here, click on alternate eye. You observe that it has gone back to its default state. Now the burn simply means you are trying to darken where was dark, and the dodge simply means you are trying to whiten where it's already whitened. So all we have to do first, we can either do any one by first, we can come to where we have the burn, pick our brush, press B for brush, you come back to this default brush settings and try and reduce this opacity to where you have like 2 or 3 is fine. Now pick up your brush and just basically burn where it's bright, where it's dark. I don't want this image to be, this editing to be too long. Can you see? I toggle it off and on. You can see that it's burning gradually. Then we burning, also burning the sides, burn the sides. I want you guys to take your time to do this stuff as well. We can burn in the hair as well, can burn in the eyebrows and also burn in these parts. Of course, you can see how I'm burning. I'm not overdoing it. You can burn off the sides. I think the image has too much contrast already, so too much of it will, I just did it very subtle. Now you can come to where you have this dodge. As you can see, this middle part, I'll actually dodge it because it's the brightest part in the image. Then the forehead, you can as well just create, dab it. When I mean dabbing, just be tapping it on the forehead. Tap also this place and also this place to just make this place whiter. Then you can observe here also, here has the white flare. You can just dodge it as well. Dodge this cheekbone, this shoulder bones rather, dodge it, and then there you go with your off and on to check how the result is. If it's too much, you can also come down to your opacity and reduce it. As you can see, you just basically hold down shift and hold down burn, then press G to group everything together. Now after doing that, you can also reduce opacity As you can see, I didn't do too much with the dodging and burning effect on this image. Now we'll move over to how we whiten our eyes and also do some few things by saving our work. Alright, the next thing we have to do now is to whiten our eyes. Okay, I have the action already, but just gonna play it. I'm just gonna play the action, and I'll be giving out this action also, so it will just make your work faster. So you basically just whiten the eyes. So once you are done whitening the eyes, zoom out to check the results if it's okay with you. Now you can reduce the opacity if you feel it's too much. So pretty much that's how we have gotten from. You can just click on this first button, come down and hold down shift and click on the blemish, press down alternate G on your keyboard. For mark, you press Command J and you can see the before and the after of this image. Now one last thing, you can just come over here to your brightness and increase it up a little bit. Okay, and pretty much that's how you edit using frequency separation. And to save up, because I told you this is actually a long tutorial, to save up your work is just coming here to file, click on export. Okay, you come to file, click on export, come to save for web legacy. Okay, so allow it to load. So once you do this, make sure that it's at JPEG. Make sure that it's not at max. It should be at very high at least. Make sure optimize is checked. Color embedded profile is also checked. And you can see the size, 16 MB, I guess. Just click on save. And that's all. You just save in where you want it. Okay, I can now save in, let's leave it at desktop. I'll just hit my save button, and pretty much that's all for how to edit and save for web and also whitening your eyes. So thank you guys, this is my first video on retouching, and I hope you love this retouching video and never stop creating and don't give up. Okay, don't give up. See you in the next video.